I want to. Oh, there we go. Microphone. That helps. Hey, everybody. JoshKnightTheFirst here. Welcome to the first installment of Henshin Attention, a new kind of more off the cuff, really off the dome sort of way of me getting out there and interacting with all of you who have been asking for the longest time for me to get back on YouTube. So thank you to all of you who have come out here right now. I see at least a good number of you right now. I appreciate it. Just to give you guys a little bit of a background, I have been doing videos before. I did the review series for Exade and Build. I was doing a little bit of Geo, and then to be honest, I got a little burned out and Geo wasn't quite good in the middle. But now, with all these things that have been happening in the past week with Ultraman, with Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, this is the time to go ahead and start talking again. So what I'm going to do is just for a few minutes here, I'm going to be talking. If you guys have any questions here in the chat, go ahead and throw them at me. But basically, we're going to be talking just a little bit here and there about the things that have happened in tokusatsu over the last week and to give people some much needed Henshin attention. So first thing I want to go ahead and try and bring up here, as far as topics go, is the major thing that we got last week, which was the appearance, or really the debut, the U.S. debut of Kamen Rider here in the U.S. by means of tokusatsu and Heisei Generations Forever. Now, this was the team-up movie that we got 2 years ago with Geo, and it celebrated 20 years of all of the Kamen Riders from Kuga to Geo coming out, and really a chance for the audience to get to know them one more time. We actually got to see Takeru Sato come back. So Saturday we had that happen, and a lot of people came out. It was there in the chat talking to people. It was really nice seeing the love and the excitement there. What was cool about it was interesting to see that some of the lines that I was a little worried about, like, say, Deno's catchphrase, I appreciate that in the subtitling, a lot of the care was taken to make the phrases sound a little more natural. I know a lot of people who have gone into the fandom and just seen a few of the subtitles, we're used to hearing it a certain way. We're used to just saying Ore Sanjo. We're used to hearing different iterations of what the catchphrase actually means. So it's nice to see that were they to actually put out all of Deno, which I'm hoping for, that would be how they would translate his catchphrase. It's climax time from start to finish. Instead of from start to finish, I'm at a climax. That's more the Japanese way of phrasing a sentence. But the thing of it is, it's nice to see that we've had this opportunity to get Kamen Rider out there in the ether, and boy is it now. Because now we've got people like James Gunn, we've got Toshiki Kashu, Kamen Rider Agito's actor, both of them active on Twitter, as well as producer Shirakura tweeting at American fans, seeing that this was very much a thing. We had Kamen Rider trending, I think it capped out at 12th in trending on Saturday night, which is amazing. That's never happened in the 15 years I've been in the fandom. So, where do we go from here? That's the question. Really what I'm hoping is that tokusatsu does everything that they possibly can to get people involved in the fandom. Now, I know Bluefin's doing their thing over there on the website. They had these amazing sales over on the model kits, on figures, some belts. I know you could get Woze's belt for about $35, if I'm not mistaken. Also going along with that, there's the giveaway that they have. Keisuke Watanabe, who's Woze's actor, signed a belt and given a nice little intro for the movie there on Saturday. If you go over to their website, you could sign up. I think it's still got 24 hours on it if you guys want to win that belt that's been signed by a Kamen Rider actor. You have that nice piece of memorabilia there. Get in on that. Get with it. Act like you want it. So, you guys, I don't know how many of you guys in the chat were there on Saturday night, but it's nice to see how many people are familiar with the series. But really what was doing it for me is the number of people who were in there who had no idea what they were watching. They hadn't been watching Kamen Rider Agito, hadn't been watching the original Kamen Rider there over on Tubi or Pluto, or however you're choosing to watch it, and seeing people come to the realization that this is a really cool franchise. This is something that's worth getting into. And at this point, yeah, it's a little off-putting. I can get how some people have brought up the idea that maybe this wasn't the best way of introducing people, because you're introducing basically 19 characters cold turkey, not counting secondary writers or Misora or anybody like that. You're introducing 19 characters cold turkey to an audience that may or may not know who they are. The other person they might recognize is Ryuki by way of Dragon Knight. So I would hope, with a couple of other people that have been talking about this, where do we go from here? I do hope that one of the first series they do decide to go ahead and localize next is Ryuki, because people would recognize that. Now, if they want to go a little bit further into the past, I'm actually okay with them doing V3 and just going chronologically through the Showa era. I'm about halfway done watching Kamen Rider, the original Kamen Rider series over there on tokusatsu right now, and I gotta tell you, it's a joy to watch. Up to this point, I'd only been able to see certain episodes because, as we all know, there's only certain ways we had been able to watch this show up until very recently. And the thing of it is, when you have that opportunity, you just got to jump on it. Take in as many as you can. If you want to marathon it, marathon it. I know some people have done that, but if you can't, just do an episode a day or something like that. Give yourself a little treat when you come home from work or what have you. The thing about it is, the show is much more available to a wide audience, not just from the standpoint of it's a cool show, but really it's a funny show, the original. The way I like to liken it to people is kind of a mix in terms of special effects between Batman 66 and the original Star Trek series, where it's about that level of cheese and also that level of special effects, but also it's that little bit of gruesomeness coming over from, say, Ultraman, where Ultraman really didn't care about how he got rid of the kaiju. He was like cutting people's heads off, cutting them down the middle, lengthwise. It was great. But with this series, there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek action. It's a little rough for those first couple of episodes, about the first 10, really when Hongo's there originally, because at that point, you're just kind of feeling out what you want the show to be. And then, unfortunately, with his actor there getting into an accident, Hiroshi Fujioka messed up his leg doing a motorcycle stunt. They had to bring in a secondary writer to go ahead and make the series keep working, because at this point, you don't want to lose the momentum you're trying to get. And really from there, the show becomes its own thing. It becomes stronger. It becomes more popular. That's where you actually get the phrase Henshin being uttered to go ahead and transform. And from there, the show really fills out that whole Monster of the Week thing that we've come to know from, like, say, Power Rangers over here in the West. And yeah, it's very basic plots. You know, Shocker does something weird. They get a monster. Ichimonji finds out about it. The girls don't really do much of anything. And then you have the fight at the end of the episode. That's the thing we've come to know over here. And a lot of people might recognize that as, say, the Power Rangers formula, and that's okay. The reason for that being is a lot of us who got into the fandom, myself included, had to start somewhere. And a lot of the start for a lot of people was Power Rangers. For some people, it could have been something else. Could have been VR Troopers, could have been Beetleborgs, could have been Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad, whatever, from the 90s, or any iteration of Power Rangers over the last 25 years. It's fine to say that that's the way you got into things, because really, you got to start somewhere. And the thing of it is, a lot of people don't realize the thing that they love about these shows is that it's a little kitschiness. It's the models, the scale models of a city, the giant robots walking around. That sort of kitschiness to it really appeals to the inner child in a lot of people, and I know that is the case for me, where that sort of thing really helps you relax, takes you to a better place, and in some cases really gets you inspired to do a lot of things. Let's see. Seeing here in the chat. Oh, we went to number 6 on trending. Hell yeah. Seeing that going up to 6, that's amazing. Because the thing of it is, you know, when you compare it to, like, say, Ultraman, right? Ultraman's been doing a great job. Subudaya Productions has made the decision to go ahead and let all of these series be released by Shout Factory for streaming later on. We know today, pre-orders went up for Ultraman Rube. So if you guys haven't seen that, you can get on that. Over there with Mill Creek. They've been doing all of these amazing releases. We've got more information coming out every day about what they're doing next. Ultraman Next is coming up next. This is an amazing time to enjoy tokusatsu and to get into tokusatsu. The thing of it is, going to 6 on trending, a lot of people aren't going to know what this thing is. You look at it, and one of the first things you get is, what's Kamen Rider? If somebody asks you that, that's fine. Just gently tell them, okay, it's pronounced this way, international vowels. It's this fun little series. It's kind of like Power Rangers. It's not a bad thing to say that. Let's see. What else we got here in the chat? I'm trying to go back and forth here. Got my friend to watch it with me, and it was a fun experience. Yeah, I'd like to hear more people were watching and getting friends in on it, because, yeah, it was really easy to get. I was in there in the chat, too. I think we topped out at about 23,000, or 2,300, I'm sorry, 2,300 viewers there on Saturday night, which is great, but a lot of those people in there already knew each other. There was a lot of people just from Twitter coming over to YouTube and then just chatting with each other there and yelling out catchphrases and so on and so forth. But the thing about it is, if this fandom's going to get any bigger or any better, we can't just keep it to the same people. And the only way you can do that is reaching out to people that aren't familiar with the show. So, the question I get a lot, and a lot of people ask this of any number of people who are in the tokusatsu fandom or seem to be some kind of an expert or view it as an expert, is where do I start? Or where do I get someone to start? And the thing I always like to go back to is, what do you already watch? What do you already like? Because chances are, either there's something in tokusatsu that's already to that taste, or sometimes if it's an anime sort of recommendation where you're coming from, sometimes somebody who's written for that anime wrote for this series. Case in point, if you saw Promare or Kill la Kill and you like those series, that kind of writing, that kind of explosive, hot-blooded character, the guy who wrote those wrote Kamen Rider Fourze. And Fourze, when I first started doing videos, I was very hard on Fourze for being a series that was a little too maybe happy for my taste, but then I gotta remember, that series wasn't made for me. It was made in response to the tsunami that had happened back then in 2011, and a lot of people needed something to brighten up their day, something to get them out of the doldrums, and Kamen Rider Fourze was that thing. And now, all these years removed, I realize, yeah, Gentaro's a great character. That's a great cast. I may not be a fan of the design, but I can't say anything about what that series means to people. So I would recommend that. If you like that kind of character, you like that kind of show, go with Fourze. If you like action, really all of them have action, but some prioritize action above others, like, say, Kabuto, for example. If you like comedy, usually Den-O is the recommendation. Double has a good amount of comedy, but I think a lot of people recommend Double anyway. So that's kind of a nice medium of where you want to try and get people in. Let's see, Bluey, what are you saying here? As much as I dislike Gaim, especially towards the end, I would recommend it if you like Gen Otobuchi's other work like Fate Zero and Madoka. Very true. Madoka is what a lot of people like to compare Gaim to, since, yes, that's the other very notable thing that Otobuchi, I always have a problem pronouncing his name, works on. The thing of it is, some people might like the description of, oh, Madoka is just Kamen Rider for girls, or Gaim is Madoka for boys. But some people might be put off by that. So pick and choose your battles on how you want to phrase things and get people into it. But beyond that, really, the only options we have right now are those two legally. Now, I know starting August 1st, Tokusatsu has said that they're going to put Heisei Generations Forever up on their streaming services so that everybody can watch it again. Now, what's going to tell the tale here, I imagine, is how many people tune in after the fact. Because, yeah, generally, on a Saturday night at any given time, not everybody is free. Yes, we knew well in advance, and some people took time off to make sure that they were there. But at the same time, not everybody can have that night off. So when you have a streaming option, that really ups your chances for getting people involved and getting them into it. So really, the next thing we got to do is make sure people know when it's streaming again and get them in on that. The next question after that is, well, what's the next series? Now, hopefully Tokusatsu, they've said that they've got another series ready, loaded up for us to go ahead and find out about, but they're waiting on certain things to happen before they can let that information out. Makes sense. My hopes for it is that it's a good series that has one of those balances in it. I know a lot of people clamor for, say, Den-O or Double, since they're really popular in the fandom. For some people, they might not be the best one, but I get from a marketing standpoint, those two have a ton of merch to push, and those, for that reason, would be very good choices. Let's see, we got Smith Danigans over here giving a comment here. I personally don't find the phrases for boys or for girls to be useful to widen the audience for shows like this, since there's plenty about tokusatsu to enjoy regardless of one's gender. Very true. The thing about it is, a lot of gatekeeping people want to keep the fandom very insular and keep it to only themselves, only their group of people. And really, I appreciate that now it can be so engaging for any number of people. Anybody can watch these shows. These people can be inspiring to anybody of any orientation, any gender identity, anything like that. If you enjoy loud, obnoxious noises, this is the franchise for you. This genre is the franchise for you. And especially now when we're starting to get a little bit more representation, I know over in Kamen Rider Zero, we've got our first non-binary actor playing our first non-binary Kamen Rider. That's amazing. to see that Kamen Rider Naki. And the thing of it is, I'm hoping that we get more Naki merch. One of the things that I've been doing a lot of lately is collecting the candy toy figures that they call Soto figures. Now, for those of you who don't know what they are, they're basically these like 6-inch or so G.I. Joe style figures that you put together yourself. You put the armor on there, and they're pretty cheap, easy options for collectors. Now, more than likely, Naki's going to get that representation for a figure, and I hope they get a lot more. The thing is, I don't know how quickly they will do a figure arts of Naki, but I hope it's sooner rather than later. Let's see. There was a leak on Roku devices about Exade being next. Exade. Now, I did cover Exade all 50 or so episodes, I believe. Or no, I think it was 49. Exade's a good series, but it's a very divisive series for some people because some people really like that loud, obnoxious aesthetic, that 90s sort of Nickelodeon feel to it, and some people don't. Some people don't like, okay, how come they couldn't decide between this plot for gamers or doctors? Which one is it? And for some people, the fact that it doesn't know what it is a selling point. So you really got to know who you're talking to about which one you want to get to be their introduction to Kamen Rider. Heard about an upcoming Soto figure of Gaim from Vangelis' Twitter feed. Yes. Vangelis, cool dude. Chris is awesome. Part of me getting into this fandom was watching his reviews. I know a lot of you in here must have seen those, having the Agito figure pose that he had there. But just to kind of bring that up, the Soto figure of Gaim. So these Soto figures are only so posable, only so decorative, only so decorated. They only come with so many stickers. But what they're doing is Bandai, who puts out these figures, have noticed that a lot of people are starting to collect these figures really seriously. So they decided, okay, let's put a little more into these figures. So now they're actually going to have more articulation than they ever would. Now they can move their shoulders and roll them forward. They wanted to make sure specifically with Gaim that he could do a cross-armed pose for holding both of his swords, which is great. You want that kind of posability for a figure, and it's amazing for the price point. Usually, if you have access to any sort of Asian food market or Japanese food market, these figures run you about maybe $10, $12, depending on the area, and that's not bad. For some of them, it's a little bit more if it's a split in half, like say Den-O, where you'll get the base body, and then you've got to buy like gun form or axe form or rod form separate to combine that on there. But that's the great thing about it, is you could switch it out and add that to the playability. And the other thing that I like to do, I did this with the Soto figure for Thouser, is on the back they don't have a lot of paint, but if you've got any Gundam markers or model paint, you can really updo those and make them that much more marketable or viewable, I guess, for your collection. So they're a really good collector's item for the price point. So I know I've been talking everybody's ear off for Kamen Rider. Let's talk about Ultraman for a second. So we've got several episodes of Ultraman Z in the bag now. Ultraman Z is doing a great job as an introductory series for Ultraman, and especially since Ultraman's doing so well as far as getting its name out there. There's the cell phone game, the Netflix anime. We've got another season of that coming up. Z, I appreciate for the fact that not only is it action-oriented, very much so with the idea of Z being more martial arts based, which I like, but also the fact that it's not taking itself too seriously, but knowing when to take itself seriously. Like, having the shock and awe in these last couple of episodes of having the crowds run away from the monster of the week really feels like big budget monster movies over here. The way it's shot, the way it's going, they've had great production values, but at the same time, you've got Sevenger there, and that's not a Pacific Rim robot. That's not a very impressive looking robot. It looks like one of those characters from Futurama. I always forget his name. I think it's Roberto, the stabby robot that always runs into Fry in them. It's a funny looking design, but people love Sevenger. You see all this fan art on Twitter and Instagram for him, and I'm in that boat. I know Wyndham is there now, the chicken looking one. Really, the love for the chicken is paling in comparison to my love for Sevenger. If I had the opportunity to be in that show, I would have no problem piloting Sevenger. Most people say, no, I'd want to be Ultraman. No, I want to pilot Sevenger. I want to be the guy in the goofy robot. And that cockpit looks like a real military cockpit. They've made sure to have all that different ornamentation that looks very cramped, that there's not a lot of room to move in there. Although I do think it's funny that by this point, nobody else has figured out the identity of Ultraman Zet, considering for at least 2 episodes running now, it's kind of popped out of Sevenger's chest. You can see the light trail, so... But it's that sort of thing in a lot of Ultraman series, where there's that kind of suspension of disbelief that people don't immediately put two and two together as to who the Ultraman is. I'm going to take a quick second to get a drink here. Let's see here. I haven't... from Smith Danigans here. I haven't watched much of Ultraman before now. Love the pilot of Z and looking forward to watching more. Definitely looking forward to that. The only thing that I'm kind of iffy about is the fact that, unfortunately, the episodes are only available for 2 weeks at a time. So if you want to get people into the series, you can't send them back to the first episode. That, I think, is a weird decision on Tsuburaya's part, which is weird considering they've been making all of these really good, decisive moves as far as getting their media out there. And especially considering that this is their show that's airing right now. We have about maybe 30 seconds delay from the Japanese release to when we get it. That's amazing. That's a huge come up from the days of, I remember even 10 years ago, when we didn't even hardly talk about Ultraman that much. Like, maybe you would hear people talking about some of the series, or 30 minutes, I'm sorry, delay between the two shows. You know, we have such a bevy of things to look at now with this, but I wish that Tsuburaya would allow those episodes to stay up for a lot longer. I know with I know it's kind of a weird comparison, but with, say, the CW, you can go back and watch the whole first season of Batwoman. It's all there. You can go back and watch Stargirl. It's all there. Now, I know for some of them, I think they cap it at like 2 months or 3 months, where, like, say, if you're watching The Flash, you can watch episodes for a certain amount of time, and then they'll go away. I think that's a much better business model for getting people to get into your show, because then they have a chance to catch up, because a lot can happen in 2 weeks. Even if people are locked down in quarantine, not everybody has the same schedule. So hopefully, with them taking it down after 2 weeks, I can only hope that Mill Creek is working with them to get Zet to us quicker, and that we'll be able to hear something about a physical release much sooner. Now, the thing of it is, compared to, like I was saying not too long ago, Kamen Rider, Mill Creek and Tsuburaya know what they're doing. They're getting those series out there at very affordable prices. Like, this past weekend, they had the sale for Ultraman Day where everything was slashed in half off on all these series. You could get whole series of Ultraman for like $12. That's insane. And I very much took part in that, and there's going to be a very big box coming soon with about, I think, 7 or 8 different series in them. I know not everybody had the opportunity to do that, but I haven't had the opportunity to buy a lot of things. Quarantine, it sucks. We move on. The thing of it is, I'm still waiting to hear whether or not we're getting any sort of physical release on any of the Kamen Rider that we've gotten so far, on Kuga, on the original series. I remember a long time ago, I think it was 12 years at this point, the only way I could watch the last 4 or 6 episodes of the series is my brother had to import the, I guess it's Region 2 DVD from Japan all the way to the US. We had no subtitles, and we just had to sit there and kind of guess, because we didn't know much Japanese at the time, what was happening, and have the story told to us through the fights. Now we don't have to do that. We can know exactly what's going on, and we can tell people, oh, this is the cool thing that happened. Look at this guy punch through the wall and break into this base for like the 4th time in a week. Bluey, what do you got here? I heard from Mike Den Vintage Henshin, good guy, that Taiga and Zet aren't a part of Mill Creek's deal, so it's going to take a while for the release of those by Mill Creek. That's unfortunate. Well, it makes sense, because up to this point, all that we've gotten is Rube, which was just yesterday that we got the announcement, or today, really, for the pre-order. And maybe because they're more recent, that's why they're holding on to them to see what happens with them. I do think it's weird, though, that when we get Zet shown over here, we also get the toy commercials. And the thing of it is, the one thing Mill Creek, or really Tsuburaya, isn't doing over here that Toei and Tokusatsu are doing very well is the toy sales, because let's not kid ourselves, these are shows for kids that are meant as giant toy commercials. So long as you know that and don't try to hide from that fact, we're cool. But the thing of it is, on one end, you've got a really big push for the merchandise, but not a lot to get from the series. Where on the other end, you got a bevy of series, but not a lot on the merch end. So that's kind of weird. It would be nice to see, I don't know, Ultraman shirts or something showing up at Hot Topic or something, Box Lunch, wherever you go to get your nerdy stuff, and have that available like we have those Team Common Rider shirts available now over on Amazon, which I still need to get one of those. I'm not sure which one to get. If any of you have ordered one, let me know here in the comments which one you've ordered. I know a lot of people have been getting theirs in this week of like double O's, eggs, I'd seen all of those. Oh, Destroyer here. Nice to see you in here. Yeah, it's nice to see that because when you have the visibility of being able to go out into a normal place like, say, Walmart or Target and have that recognition there, that Kamen Rider logo, that good logo that Toei came up with, it's nice to see that and have people look at it and be like, hey, what is that? That's interesting. I've never seen that before. The one thing I wonder, though, that having been brought up, is Toei has this really nice Kamen Rider logo. It's this nice font, Kamen Rider, and it's got the silhouette of Kamen Rider Ichigo's helmet. I wonder why they don't use that logo over on tokusatsu for Kamen Rider, because if you look at the font there, it's a really basic Microsoft font that they're using, and I don't know why that is. And it could be that it had to be done in a hurry. I don't know what the deal is. I just wish it popped a little bit more and it was more recognizable instead of looking so basic. Nothing against the show, it's just from a marketing standpoint, I wonder why it doesn't pop up a little bit more. So I've been doing this for about, give or take, 30 minutes. I'll take a minute or two. If you guys have any questions that you want to throw out, I'll answer those. Really, I appreciate all of you guys that have shown up here right now. I know this is kind of off the cuff. No warning was really given, but I want to make this a more regular forum to talk about things that are going on in tokusatsu. I appreciate that so many of you, I've seen your messages wanting me to come back and do the old review series. I very much appreciate that. But the thing about it is I want to talk about a lot more than just one series at a time, and I think doing things this way is a great way to do that. I can talk more about toys that I get. I can talk more about different series other than Kamen Rider. This is the most I think I've ever talked about Ultraman outside of Beyond the Black Rims. Definitely not any of the videos that I've already put out. But I've definitely got a lot of other videos in the works that we're trying to get out. My producer over here, my very, very nice producer over here is helping me to do that, to get these things out there. Okay, Blue, you got a question here. Thoughts on Versus Road and Dogengers? No spoilers if you can. Of course, don't want to spoil if we can stay away from it. So, Versus Road. So for those of you who don't know, Versus Road is the most recent Garo series. Just ended, 12 episodes. It's a nice little bite-sized series for you to get into for the franchise. It's kind of one of those. I don't know if this is the best way of phrasing it, but it's kind of a takeaway offshoot from the core series, because it doesn't involve any of the characters you already know, and it takes the core concept and basically adds Sword Art Online to it. Now, as far as an action show, it is amazing. Just for the action alone, if you watch Hong Kong action movies, if you like Jet Li, Donnie Yen, things like that, definitely check out Versus Road. If you're a longtime Garo fan, you'll probably like it, but it might not feel as fulfilling to you since there's not nearly as much armored fights, for reasons given there in the show. Now, as far as Dogengers goes, I have unfortunately only seen the first episode. I really need to catch up with that, but I do think it's great that all of these local heroes have had the chance to pull together and get the show out there. From what I understand, it's very funny. You can talk to most of these guys over on Twitter. They're very active in their social media, so I would definitely recommend, if you have a chance to check out that series, I'm definitely going to do that as well. Destroy here, you got a question here. Did you see Heisei Generations Forever? Yes, I was very much in that chat on Saturday night. It was great to see this movie again legally. I have to impress that very much to people, that this is the first legal time that we've been able to watch this movie at all, really any of these movies. But I do think it's kind of funny that we had this little chat for about an hour before the movie started, and they're asking people what their favorite series are, and of course people are saying Build or Double or Kabuto or what have you. And it's very weird that we're talking with representatives from Bluefin, from Tokusatsu, advocating for series that we have no way of watching, and we're about to watch one movie legally. That's just kind of it, it's weird seeing that dichotomy of here's the legal thing, but we're all going to talk about the illegal thing that we've been doing. It's weird, but still kind of interesting. Eventually, I hope we are getting to the point where we get all of them. Smith Danigans, I'd love to hear your thoughts about music as a selling point for tokusatsu with vocal songs and the OST. Oh, yes, very much so. So, the examples you give here, Kenji Kawai on Kamen Rider Build. If you've seen any of Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, Kenji Kawai's done music for that to very nice, sweeping themes. And Takanori Nishikawa, most of you know him better by his stage name, TM Revolution, who's done a number of anime openings, a lot of singles, been in the music industry forever at this point. Whatever it takes to get somebody in, yeah, definitely do that. I know for some people, if you tell them that an artist has done an opening for a thing, they're instantly entranced by that. I know for a lot of people who are getting into Decade, some people got in by hearing that Gact was doing the opening, because Gact is such a huge, well-known artist there in Japan. And then, of course, with Takanori Nishikawa doing this opening for 01, a lot of people wanted to see, oh, well, what's it going to sound like? Is it going to be very, the way he likes to sing and whatnot? And for a lot of people, like, say, I think this is a good one here. If you want to get people in through the OST, definitely talk to your friends who are into role-playing and D&D, because a lot of people like having mood music when they're DMing or, role-playing with their characters, and some of this stuff is great for having as background music for those moments, so I would definitely recommend that, specifically for Decade and Build as far as soundtracks go for that. Oh, yeah, thank you for the correction there, Smith. Yoko Kanno did Standalone Complex, Kawai did the original Ghost in the Shell movies. That very true. I would like Yoko Kanno to score a whole Kamen Rider series. Saber, I'm looking at you. Actually, I'll bring that up real quick. We'll just go for a few more minutes here. Saber. So Kamen Rider Saber is the next Kamen Rider that we're supposed to get. Now, I know we just barely got 01 back, but the thing about it is we're going to have to wait and see how all of the stuff going on, the quarantine, has affected how 01 goes into Saber and how that gets affected for filming and really how the story's told. Bluey, question here. Since you didn't review it, quick thoughts on the second half of Geo. Okay, so I do owe you guys that since I didn't finish the series. I'll be as quick as I possibly can, not to slog through it. In the middle, it was really hard to get through Geo. I have to admit that. I know at the time it was really hard for me as a reviewer to admit that I didn't like the show that I was covering, since I was trying to be very positive about it, but at the same time, you shouldn't have to lie about the series that you're watching. If it has some down points, it has some down points. But if it has some good points, you definitely want to talk about those too. I think it's interesting that with the addition of Decade and DN to the cast, that when you time that out with how many episodes they're included in Geo and add those to Decade, Decade gets a full series run. So to that extent, I understand the people who say that Geo is just Decade Season 2. It pretty much is. But you kind of had to expect that going in, since this is an anniversary series kind of rounding out the Heisei era. I do think the episodes got a lot stronger when you had really good dedicated episodes to the older series, like the Blade episode, the Den-O episode, definitely the Agito episode. Hearing Believe Yourself there in that last fight was amazing. Those kind of moments are the things, they don't quite reach Black RX double transformation levels, but they're up there. They're pretty up there. Seeing Toshiki Kashu come back and transform for the first time in a long time, because the last time we'd seen him, keep this in mind, was All Riders versus Dai Shocker. And he was just there for 5 seconds to say a line as he's disappearing through the dimension shimmer. So it was nice to see him transform again. But otherwise, I didn't hate the series. I actually really had Oma Gio as a design and not so much a character grow on me. It definitely had a stronger ending than Decade, but then again, that's really easy to do. It's an okay series. I didn't hate it. I didn't absolutely love it, because it's hard to compare with, say, Build the year before. But, it's not bad. It's very helpful if you know the series going into it, much more so than Decade. Let's see. I hope Saber brings back magic, but does it better than, say, Kiva and Wizard, that from Destroyer Hero X. I would agree. So I don't think I've said this publicly, and I've seen some other people come to the same conclusion. So if you look at the logo for Saber, you see the sword and the kanji there, Tsurugi, Saber, kind of the same way they did, or not Tsurugi. Tsurugi was for blade. The kanji that they're using for Saber in Japanese translates to holy sword. And then if you look there in the logo, there's a little book with pages open there. So really what that points to is Woz is coming back. No, I'm kidding. Really what that points to me is that this very much could be based in Arthurian legend. That Saber could be based on like King Arthur, Excalibur, things like that. I've heard some rumors going around today about what people think the design is going to be, and always right now you take those with a grain of salt. Normally right about now is when we would be seeing the first sort of bits and pieces of what Saber looks like, because that's what it was last year with 01. It was about 2 weeks after Anime Expo that we finally got to see what 01 looked like. So if that timeline still holds up, and it might not, compared to how this whole year has been going, we might be able to start seeing the first sort of pieces of how that gets done. Now, do be careful, though, when you're out there on Instagram, on Tumblr, Twitter, wherever, and you start seeing rumors and you start seeing pictures, because a lot of people have gotten very good at putting up fake pictures to get people thinking, oh, this is what it is. And you can kind of tell there's a certain aesthetic that Toei likes to go for when they put out these things, when they put out the designs for the new writer. There's a certain way it's supposed to look, and once you learn what that is, it gets really easy to spot the fakes. Let's see. Destroy here. The best part of Geo is the Another Writer costumes. I very much love the Another Writer costumes. Going back to what I was talking about earlier with the Soto figures, I appreciate that Soto is the line. If you wanted a fig arts of each Another Writer, don't waste your time, don't waste your breath. Collect the Soto figures. They're very well detailed, and you can get a ton of these Another Writers that they put out for that. I can't impress to you guys enough to get into collecting Soto. Smith, what do you got here? Wonder if Kamen Rider Saber could potentially be similar to Thunderbolt Fantasy before younger audience. Speaking of which, would you consider Thunderbolt Fantasy to be under the Toku umbrella? I would say yes, because Thunderbolt Fantasy is basically, for those of you who don't know, it's a super cool series that's basically a puppet show, but it is the most badass puppet show you could ever see, so much so that they got a second season. It definitely falls under the Toku umbrella because of the fact that it's special effects filming, which is really all tokusatsu is. It's a shortened form of two words, tokushu satsuhei, which just means special effects filming. When you compare that to something like, say, Thunderbirds, the old UK stop-motion marionette series, that is absolutely tokusatsu. So I would totally say Thunderbolt Fantasy falls under tokusatsu. Some people might not know what to classify it, and might sooner classify it as, say, anime, but I would definitely say it's tokusatsu. Yeah, a puppet show with killer special effects. Definitely would look into watching Thunderbolt Fantasy. But I think I've been going for the better part of an hour now. I'm going to go ahead and cut it here. Thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate so much that you've come out here. I will definitely give you guys more advance notice the next time I do one of these. So definitely let people know we're going to have more Henshin Attention. We're going to have this going. We're going to let this be a thing. Definitely go out there, support the official releases of everything. And remember, your favorite heroes can change, so can you. I'll see you guys next time.